Why? Why? They had them. They had both picked right there, and they couldn't do it. I don't understand why. They just couldn't do it.
Hey, what's going on, YouTube? This is the West Coast Champs. My name is Gordon. This is Nathan.
What's up, everybody? Hope your team made you happy this weekend because, as you will see, mine definitely did not.
Today, we have a good video for you, recapping and analyzing the 2020 NFL Draft. Today, we're going to be talking about two teams that won the draft and two teams that lost. Nathan, we had a pretty good draft over the last 3 days. What do you think about it?
Man, it was a crazy weekend in the NFL. A lot of surprises and also a lot of things that made sense. Teams were kind of all over the place, throwing picks around, not as much as usual, but we did see some teams move players and actually acquire players through trade and free agency that helped them not even in the draft. So it was definitely an exciting few days here for the NFL.
There was a lot of action going on between trades and real players getting chosen as well. So let's start it off. Let's start talking about the two teams that we like. Nathan, what is the first team that you think that won the draft?
So I'm going to go and start with a pick that I said in our last video, and that team, the Arizona Cardinals. A team that I think is definitely winning the offseason right now. Isaiah Simmons managed to fall down to 8, and they took him without hesitation. And Kyler Murray got some weapons with Eno Benjamin, and then also through a trade with Houston to get DeAndre Hopkins. The only thing that was kind of curious was that defense, and they managed to go get another linebacker and another defensive tackle while also drafting an offensive lineman to help Kyler stay healthy with him running around trying to make plays happen. So I think that Arizona had a great weekend, managed to get all the players that they definitely needed to compete there in that competitive NFC West.
You can't help but really love that Isaiah Simmons pick. I'm sure that they're glad that he fell all the way to number 8 to just have right then and there at that pick without moving up. Love that addition to their defense. Kyler getting some help as well will definitely benefit him for the next few years to come.
I do think though that the Eno Benjamin pick, people don't realize that these late round draft picks end up being a lot better for them. And he had a very successful career at ASU, ran up against some very hard-nosed defenses such as SC, Stanford, Oregon, and UW. So I definitely think a player to watch, even though he was a late round pick.
So for my first team that I think that won the draft, I'm going to be talking about the Patriots. A lot of people do not believe that they won the draft, but I think got some very Bill Belichickian picks here in this 2020 draft, especially after losing Tom Brady. No quarterback taken in this draft, so a little surprising by Bill, but you know what? They made up for it whilst getting some depth on the defensive line and defensive back end. Their first pick was actually kind of an unknown pick, a guy named Kyle Duggar out of Lenore Rhine. I don't even know where that is in the USA. It'll probably be included on one of our games later in the week. But they did get some depth with 2 edge rushers and 2 tight ends, 2 positions that they definitely need after losing some guys to edge position in free agency, and they do not have any tight end replacement yet for Gronk. So hopefully 1 or 2 of both of these guys can be good for them.
The Patriots are interesting. I don't want to hate on them completely. I don't love all their picks. I think securing some of those late round linebacker picks definitely will help them on the defensive side of the ball. But I really felt that they needed to get some offensive firepower besides those tight ends. They lack wide receivers right now. They don't have a quarterback. Seemingly, there are 2 options that I've heard regarding the Patriots. It seems to be that Stidham would start and maybe we go tank for Trevor. And the other thought is that maybe they go and try and get Jacoby Brissett from the Colts, who ended up drafting another quarterback. So the Patriots are kind of all over the place. To me, they weren't necessarily a win. I do see your point. I kind of list them as but you know them better than I do, so I will take your word for that.
Let's go and talk about the second team on your list of teams that won the draft.
a team that really hasn't been talked about much here in the last 2 years after the retirement of Peyton Manning. But I think that the Denver Broncos had a fabulous draft. Jerry Jeudy, for some reason, slipped down to 15. And just like we talked about with CeeDee Lamb, you couldn't not draft him. They finally gave Drew Lock some weapons there. They signed Melvin Gordon in the offseason. I think they could use now Philip Lindsay either as a flex back or as some trade bait. They started to secure some more defensive players. The Broncos were known for having one of the deepest defenses and most ferocious defenses there during their Super Bowl runs. And I think now drafting Michael Owamudia from Iowa and some defensive linemen, they'll definitely help that defense with a bunch of free agents leaving to go to other AFC teams.
Yes, the loss of Chris Harris, I'm sure, is set to affect them. They did get a couple other corners and defensive pieces in the draft, like you said. I'm excited for Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to be a star no matter who's throwing him the ball. He seems to have the perfect skills in the NFL. I think they got a really good guy there for the next 10, 15 years.
Jerry Jeudy is, they said, possibly the greatest route runner ever at the combine. So I think that says something about not just his ability to go up and catch the ball, but his skill as an all-around wide receiver. And one last thing, like I said, they lost some defensive linemen. Derek Wolfe is gone, and they drafted McKelvin Agim out of Arkansas, who I think will be able to fit in there. And with Von Miller kind of not as great as he was, I think you'll see their 5th-round pick, Justin Strannard, learn from him and possibly be the linebacker of the future. So I think Denver's set up moving forward to be a team that could compete here in a few years.
All right, and now let's talk about my second pick for the team that won the draft, and that is going to be the Cleveland Browns. They had a pretty good draft, in my opinion. They got Jedrick Wills for 10th overall, the second lineman off the board. He went, interesting enough, before Wirfs and before Becton. Becton was chosen right after him, but I think he's going to be helpful, very helpful, in fact, to Baker Mayfield, and they're going to get a lot of use out of him. Now, the second pick they had was in round 2. They got another LSU star to go on that team, along with Greedy Williams and the 2 wide receiver brothers. Grant Delpit is going to be an absolute star, I think, along there with Grant, that already the aforementioned Greedy Williams, but also has Denzel Ward. They kind of have a good defensive backfield. They're young as well, and I think they're going to be a powerhouse on the defensive side in Cleveland for the next few years. It's looking like, with all these young defensive stars.
I agree. I think that defense that kind of has lacked here in the last year or two is now going to start to secure more secondary. They lack in the linebacker range, which I know they did go and get a few later that you may talk about. But I think that securing that center field position there at safety with Delpit, along with the 2 guys on the corners, their defense is definitely going to be something to not sleep on looking here into the next year.
Yes, sir. And like you said, they also got some more defensive depth as well. I think that is going to be very important. And another year between Jarvis, Odell, and Baker to get them all on the same page, along with Kareem Hunt for a full year. Watch out. The Browns, if any year was their year to start getting resurrected, it should be this year.
With plenty of teams winning the draft, there were tons that lost. And to start off, the New York Giants yet again failed everybody. Their number 1 pick there in the first round, Andrew Thomas, was baffling. They needed offensive line strength. They had the top 3 guys still there, and they managed to draft probably the number 4 or 5 prospect. They had Jedrick Willis, Tristan Wirfs, and Mickey Becton sitting there perfectly for them, and they managed to mess that up somehow. They did have one good draft pick in Xavier McKinney, who slipped somehow into the second round. I thought he was going to be a first-round pick for sure, but the rest of their draft was seemingly all defensive players. They really did not give Saquon any help up there in the front, and they didn't give anything to Daniel Jones to help on the outside. The Giants definitely did not help their case, and I see them only going down there in that NFC East.
Not giving Daniel Jones any help is kind of concerning for that offense heading into the new year, especially with Jason Garrett as their new offensive coordinator. Good on them for trying to address the defense, But man, if Xavier McKinney is your best pick, and while he's pretty good, I would have liked to see them make a more impactful pick at the number 4 position. Like we thought Isaiah Simmons could have been there. Andrew Thomas just doesn't seem to be a glamour pick.
Definitely agree. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm downing on they're trying to help that defense. It definitely needed help. And people are going to be like, well, Nathan, they have Sterling Shepard. They have Evan Ingram. Why do they need help on the offense? Because they never play. When's the last time you saw Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram play a full season without getting hurt? Never. It's never happened. So you needed to go and get a guy, and you had players sitting there, and you went and drafted all defensive players. There were running backs, there were wide receivers that were drafted way later that had super high upside. All I kept hearing about all weekend were the wide receivers and running backs out of Memphis, who I saw go to teams that didn't necessarily need them, and the Giants sat there without drafting any of them. So another team in New York seemingly is your team that lost in the draft.
Yes, I think that the New York Jets also lost this draft as well. While I do think their top 2 picks, Mekhi Becton at 11 and Denzel Mims, a wide receiver, can make a positive impact on the Jets, their middle and back end picks were kind of puzzling and also atrocious. Spending 2 4th-round picks on QB and running back with Darnold and Le'Veon Bell at your starting positions kind of seems not like the best choice on picks that you need to make sure that they hit for you to become a championship contending team. I think they're going to be important, all these late round picks, and it just seems that they haven't been helping themselves with these missed picks at the end and at the top of the draft as well. I'm glad they got help for Darnold, but I don't see any immediate impact additions on the defense besides 1 pick. It was in the 3rd round, an edge rusher, K'Lavon Chaisson. He's a pretty good edge rusher, but besides that, very little additions to their defense.
I like their first 3 picks. I got to be honest. I like Chaisson, and I think the wide receiver out of Baylor is a great pick to go there and help Darnold. But like you said, the quarterback and running back drafting there was baffling. Why are you drafting players in positions that you seemingly have locked up for the future? I know Le'Veon is kind of iffy. You don't really know what you're going to get from him, but you're paying him a lot of money, and it seemingly is you are trusting Darnold. I know he's kind of been all over the place, but what have you put around him? They're definitely going to have to go into free agency and sign some big names in order for them to compete in that AFC East, which time and time again we have talked about is up in the air. So we will see what happens with them.
I would have really loved for them to go out and grab Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb with that 11th pick. I don't think Mekhi Becton's a bad pick, but man, a little spice and flavor for that offense might have got fans to start flocking to the Jets and see what the heck Darnold and Jerry Jeudy could have done together.
They could have flipped those picks, and I think it would have made a little bit more sense going with the high-power receiver and offensive lineman there in the 2nd round in a deep class there. So I see 100% what you're saying. My second loss of the draft, I will stay in the NFC East, and it is my Philadelphia Eagles. They had their guy sitting there. They were looking for a top 4 wide receiver, and Justin Jefferson was sitting right in front of them. So what do? They draft Jalen Reagor. He's not a bad player. He's really not. He had a good season. He has a lot of upside, but Justin Jefferson can play 3 different positions and had a phenomenal year at LSU. He could have been put in right away and started with Alshon and Zach Ertz in that offense and gave Wentz another option. And speaking of Wentz, your 2nd round pick was a quarterback. A quarterback who can't probably run your offense and runs the option. Later, I go and read, and they talk about how, we're going to use Jalen Hurts as Taysom Hill. What? Jalen Hurts is so fragile, and you want to use him as a wide receiver or an RPO guy in the NFL. Are you insane? There's no way that works.
When they announced that pick, all you can do is shake your head. What are you doing? Carson Wentz is there.
You're paying him $100 million. he gets hurt. I understand that. Go make a trade. Get a backup. Go get Nick Foles again. Honestly, I'd rather have Nick Foles. Carson Wentz is going to be your starting quarterback. Jalen Hurts is not going to win you a Super Bowl. We have the team now. We need to win now. If you're planning for the future, that's not going to work. Our players are all going to be gone. Surprisingly, they did get some linebackers, which is what we talked about, and a safety to help secure that back end of the defense. But the offensive questions still remain. I don't understand what they're doing. And finally, who is your second team that you think didn't do what they needed in this draft?
I don't think the Texans won this draft at all. They might have already lost it with all the picks they gave away this season. The Laramie Tunsil trade, they didn't have any first-round pick because of that. They only had 5 picks in total. Like I said, no first-round pick, but the first 2 picks, they did load up in the defensive front 7. They got a defensive tackle, Russ Blacklock, and a linebacker, Jonathan Greenard. But a lack of draft picks caused the Texans to fail to get any immediate impact players. Bill O'Brien's going to have to turn around and try something, especially after the addition of David Johnson. He's barely been on the field the last few seasons. They only got one offensive lineman in the draft, a 4th-round guy, and you know what? I think they should have gone out and either got more offensive linemen or more skill position receiver or running back for Deshaun Watson to have a little help there on offense.
I was sitting here all weekend and it was like, I did not hear the Houston Texans name at all. And this explains it. They had so much to fill in by the loss of Clowney, Tunsil, and Hopkins. And they think that Brandon Cooks, David Johnson, and a rookie offensive lineman are going to fix all this. I agree with everything you said. I think that they lost and they are in a hole in a division where teams like the Colts got a lot better in this draft.
Yeah, they did not help themselves. They did not set themselves up for success in this draft. You just see teams out here with 15 picks, and they only have 5. It seems like Bill O'Brien is not doing his job successfully, as we have all seen him trading away star players for nothing and not getting any draft picks.
It seemed to be that teams this year, for some reason, wanted to stack in positions they had already, or they drafted earlier. So it was kind of a toss-up on who teams were going to draft.
So that was our list of 2 teams that won the draft and 2 teams that lost the draft. We do have a couple honorable mentions here. We would like to say that the Chargers also had a good draft. They seemed to fill up their needs in 1 round. In the first round, they got Justin Herbert. The Buccaneers also had a decent draft as well. We believe that they won because they placed some skill position players around Tom Brady, and they also got some defensive help for him as well.
With a crazy few days behind us, the NFL draft concludes. Gave us some highs and lows, and we are excited for the upcoming NFL season to start as soon as it can. But that brings us to the end of our draft coverage. We are excited to start bringing you some new content here on the channel, some new fun, fresh ideas, and we can't wait to share with all of you. So have a good one, and we will see you next time.